All right. What do you say we do this? Everyone brain fried, right? Last session of the day, you can't take any more great information? Wow. Okay. So I'm not going to stay over here too much. I'm going to just sort of, okay. Well, hi everybody, thanks for coming. Woo! Yeah. There you go. I like that end of conference energy. All right, this is me. My name is Dean. I'll put this up later. I'm from the United States, really super far away. And I am the principal of a company called True Matter. We're a UX consultancy. All we do is UX all the time. Hi over there. How are you? We do UX all the time. That's it. We do specialize in complex digital products. So I'm working with dev teams and developers all day, every day, and I love it. It's great. All right, to business. This is a pickle. How many people here like pickles? Oh, that's why it's always so many. Oh, do you not like pickles?
No.
How many people don't like pickles? Good. All right. So this is for you, right? Someone over here didn't like pickles? Okay. So it's like three of us. We're totally having a great time, and everyone else might be, maybe you have so-so time. All right. I hate them. I hate pickles with a passion. I hate them to the North Star. Here's why I hate them. And maybe you might agree, people who hate them. One, if you put a pickle on your plate, its vile juices infect everything else on the plate. Now you might think that's the best part, right? For me, it's the worst part. And I don't know how things work here in Australia, but in America, if you order lunch and you get a sandwich, it's coming with a pickle, whether you asked for it or not. All right? And that's kind of like my problem. So I've had to get pretty good at ordering my lunch, and I'll say, hey, I want this turkey sandwich and no pickle, please. Right? So of course, what happens? When I ask for no pickle on a sandwich, pickle shows up because the pickle's automatic. It's an implied pickle, it's an assumed pickle, it's part of the process, and that's where it just happens to me all the time. So I had to get really good at this. I had to say, how am I going to do better with a percentage of not getting pickles? I'm not saying I have a spreadsheet on this at all. But what I would do is I'd try new things. I'd say, hey, listen, please, just no pickle with this sandwich. Please, would that be okay if I had no pickle? Little bit more. That didn't work very well at all. I would just still usually get the pickle all the time. Now, I was not going to say I'm allergic to pickles, because that would be a lie. I just really, really loathe them, right? So I want to tell the truth. So I happened upon something that worked for me at one point. So I said, hey, I'd like this turkey sandwich. And I said, and no pickle. Like that. And doggone it, that kind of works, okay? That kind of works. My percentage success went way up. And I'm not sure if it's because, it's memorable, right? And they go back, oh yeah, that was the guy who didn't want a pickle. Or they go back and say, hey, don't put a pickle on this guy's plate because I don't know what he's going to do. Right? So that really worked for me to a certain extent. Which brings us to the villain of the story. So this is actually a great sandwich place in America. All right, Jason said, I like it. Great sandwiches, fine. But they're particularly good at giving you a pickle. Extremely good at it. Seasoned excellence. This is the average sandwich you get at Jason's Deli. Notice it has chips. This is where the chips come in. You always have to choose your chips with this sandwich. Everyone chooses chips, it's fine. You have to say what kind of chips you want. But that pickle, you didn't ask for it, but it's coming. So I decided in my thorough way to look at the website and say, have they mentioned this at all? Have they prepared me for the fact that this is coming? Or is it just custom? So I went to the site. I said, okay, let's look for any mention of the word pickle in any way, shape, or form in any part of the site. Now, I should say that that's only like half of the page. And of course, this is still only half of the page. No mention of pickles, which now this is getting me a little bit upset, because now they're giving me something they haven't even told me about. I should take it back. They actually use the word pickle once, but it's just like this branded meal for kids. And I think it's, you can get pizza and it's called a pickle meal, whatever. Okay. So, one day, I was having a bad day. You ever have a bad day at work? Like, nothing's going right? You did everything great, and the client still hates everything, right? And they're being unreasonable, and I needed to get out. And so I go out, and I go to Jason's Deli. This was my first mistake. And I order my sandwich. No pickle, please. Damn it came with a pickle. Anyway, and I was having a bad day. So I'm very, very upset. And this young guy, I don't know, he's 18 years old. He's the manager, right? And he has the unfortunate happenstance to walk by and say, "And how are we doing today?" And I said, "Man, you need to tell me about this pickle process you've got." And he looks confused at me. I'm like, no, you have to tell me how I go from I don't want a pickle and I get one. I want to know why and how in the process that broke down. And he's looking at me kind of confused, and then he just says, "All right, I'll go find out." And he goes off, and I don't think I'll hear from him again. But later, he does come back, and he says, "I have an answer for you." And I was like, "Well, lay it on me." And he says, "Well, you always get to choose chips with your meal." I was like, "Yeah, that's great." He says, "Well, we kind of only have one button in the interface, and that's it. It's chips and pickle. It's the chips and pickle button." I know. "We can't have this." God, no, we can't have this. We've got to have this. Only chips and pickle together. It basically means programmatically I'm getting a pickle. That's what it means. But I'm not going to be deterred, because this is just me going up to the counter and ordering a sandwich. Maybe if I just went online, right? And so I did. But everything's different online. On mobile, it was okay, and I sort of start looking around, and I'm choosing my wonderful sandwich. And I find something pretty cool, right? I can actually make a choice of what sandwich I want and like what chips I might want. But notice that like some of the chips come with a pickle and some don't. Okay. The real problem is the chips I want come with a pickle. And they're the only chips I want, of course. So I'm like, all right, I got to choose it if I want these chips. Fine. And there it is, right? But then I notice I have special instructions I can offer. And at this point, I'm upset enough that I'm like, I'm going to type a message, okay, about this. Like, please, for the love of God, please, no pickles, what I want to type. And that's how far I got. 25 character limit. And and they don't tell you, they don't warn you that there's a character limit, and they don't even give you an error. They just stop receiving your input. So now I'm going to give them 25 characters they'll never forget. So this is 25 characters, straight up, spaces, punctuation, exactly. Okay, great. Maybe that'll work. And then I notice I can personalize my meal. Like what person is going to name their meal? If someone thought this was a good idea. I'm not going to name my meal Dean's Fantastic Pickleless Sandwich. I'm going to give them another set of instructions, and I'm ready for their 25 character limit, which there was one. And I made sure they heard all about it in the personalizing my meal area. I picked up my sandwich and it had a pickle in it. It did. So it seems that there are problems with UI. It's a button, it's the mobile area, and it's completely destroyed my day every time it happens. I know, right? You probably understand, right? I mean, you're ready for that lunch, and it's destroyed. I do get it, though. I understand that this is like problems for people who don't have problems, right? So I'm going to complain about that. But this got me thinking because, you know, I'm a UX guy. I'm a interface guy, and I'm trying to understand why did someone do that? And it certainly affected me. So I just get to thinking about little crazy problems, and I just did some research. I thought, you know, there's a lot of these problems out there that are pretty serious, not Pickle-like. So we're going to look at a few of these. And I promise I haven't told you the whole story on the pickles yet. We're going to come back around to that. But first, real problems, okay? Caused by little itty-bitty interface quirks. All right? For me, it's the chips and pickle button or the 25-character limit in a rant. Okay. 2018, January. Imagine you live in Hawaii, middle of the Pacific, America, and you're going about your day. Fine day. And then suddenly, on your phone, on everybody's phone, on TV, on the radio, and on every electronic billboard along the highway, you see this message. It's pretty serious. Now, you're instantly thinking you're about to be incinerated by a thermonuclear device. Or grandma is. One or the other. And you might freak out a little bit about this. And people did. I mean, there's car accidents and all this sort of stuff people were having when they see this. Now, you're also thinking, it's pretty plausible. I don't know much about North Korean missiles, but they have those, don't they? And aren't they kind of close to sort of close to Hawaii? I guess, maybe? Maybe this is it. Now, this message was out there for 38 minutes. For 38 minutes, you're thinking, we're done. Or grandma's roasted. Who can say? And 38 minutes later, you get this message. On your phone, on the radio, on every billboard. Really, everything's fine. We were just kidding about that imminent missile threat. Sure, we all thought we were going to buy it, but now it was nothing. Let's just go on with our Sunday. It's basically what you get. And the next day, they had this newspaper come out, and it's like, oops. And I think they won a Pulitzer for this. And the governor says, somebody pressed the wrong button. Somebody pressed the wrong button. And I'm like, all right, look, we are software people. No one's pressing this button, whatever this button was, and I want to know what it was. So I start looking. It can't be this, right? I mean, could it be this? Could it be this? The answer is yes. It's exactly this. And the government of Hawaii puts out this list, and they said, this is the list we had to choose from to figure out what was going to happen. Is this going to be a drill we're going to send out, or is this going to be the real thing? Because basically they thought they were doing a drill, but it was not. They sent out the real thing. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, yeah, sure. I don't even know what that means still, right? One of those is a drill. Yeah, it says drill at the beginning. And one of them is the real thing for an incoming missile alert. It's pretty crazy looking. Now, I know these are hyperlinks. You know these are hyperlinks. These are not buttons, but what could we expect from our political leaders? But then they give us another thing. The next day, they say, no, it wasn't that list. It was this list. So now my trust level, already low, drops super far. I look at this and say, this is software. This is a drop-down pick list. This is something I understand. It still uses kind of the same terminology. I could see how someone would screw this up, right? Every time I look at it, I don't know what to do and I have to look at it closely. Okay, fine. But now that I know it's software, and now that I know states probably use the same software, or some of them do, I start digging. it's in this internet thing to try to find out what it was. And it took a long time to sort of sort out what the company was, what their software was, to find the PDFs that encased the demos of the screens so we could figure out what their software was like. And this is it. So this is one of their real demos. And you could see, yes, our investigation was correct. It's a drop-down list. And you could put all sorts of stuff in there. You make some kind of template, you put all your stuff in there, you pick one, go, drill, whatever. It's just basic stuff. Kind of a mess, for sure. And they have their drop-down in their test screens. That looks great, right? Like, oh, look, these are some tests, and these are some live templates. For some reason, in the same drop-down, I don't recommend you ever do that, right? Okay. And then I put them side by side, and I say, one's a little bit easier to understand than the other, and maybe I wouldn't quite have made as bad a mistake if it was written that well. I know what you're thinking. There's no freaking way you can just pick that missile thing and not have another button that says, are you really, 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 really sure you want to do this? And the software has this. It might not say quite that, but the software is like, are you sure you want to send this thing out? And the person who did it was like, yes, I am. And they went and sent this thing out. Now, what went wrong is a little bit weird. It is about this interface quirk. But the person who did it, the person who actually sent this thing out, said, I did exactly what I was told to do. I did what I was trained to do, and I'd do it again. And he was totally fired. He was fired big time. And then he sued the state of Hawaii, saying it was wrong, I was right, all this stuff. And that went on forever. I think it might have been settled. I really don't know what happened. But there was plenty of wrong to go around. Personally, I think the guy screwed up. I think he did hit the wrong thing, and maybe thought he heard something he didn't. But we'll talk about that in a minute. All right. First, let's talk about the design. We see this, right? It's really bad. Okay, this was, by the way, it's a big commission report. This is how I know this is exactly what they called the problem. I read the whole report. It's terribly dry and uninteresting, but this is the good stuff in it. They called it poor naming, poor organization, right? That's what we call content strategy. There's all these different confusing choices. We all saw that. They called these software design failures, live and test in the same interface. Boo. That's pretty bad, right? Oh, look at that. You can't take anything back once you do it, right? If you send out an alert, it's done. It's in the world. It happened, and that's that, right? You can't take it back. It just happened. And then users can do too much to screw it up and write different things and make it even worse. So we give users too much rope, they hang themselves. Okay, so this all kind of worked correctly, though. That's the thing I want to instill in all of these things. From the Pickle interface to this, it works exactly as it was designed. It was designed to do this, right? And in fact, it fit a specific template. It tried to do lots of different things for lots of different states in one template. It sort of fit the need of the functionality. It would have totally would have passed QA. It did exactly what it was supposed to do, right? No one was really going to catch this problem. Now, the other issue, of course, is something they call human factors, which is sort of like the old way to talk about usability engineering, right? People screwed up, is what it means. Okay, that dude who said, I did what I was trained to do. Well, what happened was there was this shift change. We're going to come back to a shift change later, too. It's always a shift change. And they said, the supervisor said, you know what I'm going to do an exercise alert. And I'm going to get those people in the next shift, and they'll be surprised, and we'll see how good they are at it. Right? And surprise, it didn't quite work out well. Now, this guy maintains that when they said over the intercom, drill, right? And he's like, wait, I got to hear this better. I'm going to pick up the phone. And on the way of picking up the phone and bringing it to his ears, he misses the words exercise, 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 right? I think they didn't use the proper terminology. So he didn't hear drill, he didn't hear exercise. He just heard missile, alert, let's go, let's do this. I think he's probably lying, okay? I think he's covering up a bad error. But possible, it could have happened. No one's super trustworthy in this. And there was really bad process breakdown. I want to talk a little bit about process too. There's always process. What happened here is this message goes out, and now no one knows how to take it back, and there's no process to take it back. There's no way to deal with this, completely new. So they basically have this, and the shift change happened, so no one even knew, was it real? Was it not real? It literally took someone, this guy pressed this button, he's like, oh my God, I just did this. And the dude kind of froze, and someone had to 90s SNL move and have them fix it, right? And this guy's out. They couldn't figure out how to solve the problem. They got the governor on the call and said, you got to take this back. We can't. It just took some really smart, creative person 37 minutes later to say, what if we just sent another message out and said, we're kidding? And it's so crazy, it just might work. And it did. So they just sent another message out into the world that said it was fine, right? And of course, no one's trained super well in this software, or else they wouldn't have let it degrade to the point it did to make it easy to have that problem. This is what happens when process is sort of a problem along with bad design. Okay, you've got, say you start with bad design. Right? Bad design often elaborates or elucidates problems with processes that you didn't know were there, but a fault in the design can suddenly show you those things. And sometimes when you have bad processes, they could lead you to implement poor designs. And so you basically have this circle. In all of our cases today, you'll see this. Okay, impact, well, they had to change every way they do alerting with this company, and with all the states evaluated everything. They changed all the processes. It just took forever. Commission report, people got fired. The head of the emergency agency in Hawaii said, yeah, I'm out, I resign, fired the other guy. Could have been worse, I guess. There were car accidents, someone had a heart attack about it, but other than that, Okay, ready for another one. Let's go from nuclear annihilation to nuclear annihilation. We're going to go to 1979, going back a little bit more. Some of you may even heard of this. This is the Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, in case it's kind of near New York. Okay. And there's this island in the middle of the river. It's called 3 Mile Island because it's 3 miles long and has nuclear reactors on it. Now, at some point, there was a problem with reactor number 2. Reactor number 2 is getting hot, and we can't stop it from getting hot. And no matter what we do, it keeps getting hot. And we're like, uh-oh. Because if this thing melts down so close to massive population centers in the United States, we've got lots and lots and lots of trouble. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to evacuate, this is 1979, you're going to evacuate 40 million people? How? And this goes on for more than a day. This goes on into 2 days where the reactor's getting hot and they can't stop it and they don't know why. Okay, so everyone's sort of freaking out. And you should know that a few weeks before this movie came out called The China Syndrome. You may have heard of it. It's about a horrible nuclear accident and meltdown. And then a couple weeks later, here you go, we got it, just for you. So America's kind of already freaked out, okay? Now, good news. I have good news for you. The reactor did not melt down. They did find the problem, they were able to take care of it, and disaster averted. Okay, that's great. But then they're going to investigate, of course. What happened? Spoiler alert, just look at all the buttons. Okay. And this is President Carter. He's in there. He's touring. I just have this in here because I like these little boots he's wearing. And he just died this year at 100. years old. But they do this presidential commission. There's always a big report. I read the whole report. It was very boring, but now I'm going to tell you about the good stuff in it, okay? The problem with the meltdown was the result of one little itty-bitty valve. Don't need to worry about it too much. PORV valve is written up there. It's basically the valve that has to stay shut so the coolant stays in the tower, so the fuel doesn't get hot, and we don't melt down. Just that little valve has to be closed, right? That's it. That's all that has to happen. But it was stuck open, right? And no one could figure out that it was stuck open. Want to know why? Because this little light, the PORV valve indicator light, was on, meaning the valve is closed. So they're like, it's super hot. What about that valve? The light's on, we're good. It's not the valve, let's go find something else that it could be. But it was the valve. So they're spending all this time trying to fix problems that don't exist, when the problem that did exist, they just waltzed right over. The light was on. The light says everything's okay. Just this one little light in the sea of lights in the control room. Okay, so that light was on. But you know what? The light was right, because the light simply indicated that a command to close the valve had successfully been sent. That light's like, I did my job, I told it to close. But it got stuck, it didn't close, the light was correct. It communicated that it sent a command. Well, I don't know if it worked or not, right? And so we see the light, everything's fine, and it takes 2 days to sort this out. Just one little light. That's it. That's it. Now, there was other problems here. By the way, this all happened in the middle of a shift change. It's another story we'll get into in a second that caused more problems. There's never less than 52 alarms lit at any given time, even in normal times, in this massive control room, right? So there's lots of lights, and there's lots of buttons and lots of switches. Now, if something's malfunctioning, even if you knew it was malfunctioning, you can't just like, I don't know, you're not going to log into Jira and write a ticket or anything. It's 1979. So you're just going to write down something on a card, and you're just going to put it on the knob. Hey, this is broken. We have to look at this. And there were so many of these things all over the control room that they were covering other switches and other lights and stuff like this. So in other words, that wasn't the problem, but as they delved into the problem of just that one light, they're like, holy crap, there's all sorts of problems with the interfaces of this control system. And so they had to deal with more problems that came out. Okay, that light worked just the way it was supposed to. That light was on point, right? It was doing it right. Usability in that whole arena of the nuclear facility, total afterthought, right? We're just going wholly into function. It's just going to do what it's going to do. And these are parts of the report. I'm not going to read them all. They're all very damning, okay? Human engineering planning was virtually non-existent. We could just stop there, right? Everyone's admitting, man, this is like the worst interface we've ever had to use in our lives. And that one mattered, right? Poor control room design. Here's more about that control room. Oh my gosh. Excessive operator motion, workload, error probability, and response time because it was so hard to use. And this was beyond that little light that actually caused the problem. Everyone was super confused responding to this problem because A, they were trying to solve a problem that did not exist and they didn't know what the real problem was. And they also had all these policies and procedures. It's a nuclear facility. You try A, if A doesn't work, you go to B. If B doesn't work, you go to C. If C doesn't work, you go to D, and you have to do them all. And then the shift changes and they gotta go back to A. A is like, for all I know, it was a PORV valve. That's fine, let's keep going. How did they fix it? Same way the missile fiasco got fixed. Someone said, hey, what if the PORV valve is like open? And they're like, no, it's not. The light's on. Yeah, but what if it is open? That's it. That's all it took. Someone to be creative, out of the box, and not follow the procedures, solve the problem. So they had bad communication, and it was radically scrambling. When they solved this problem, it was like, we're not going to die. Okay, also had process failure. That's really bad error handling when your error indicator is not indicating an error. Not so bad in your average form, kind of bad in a nuclear power plant. And of course, the bureaucratic systems we mentioned. No one was wrong. You ever have a project where no one was wrong and the project went to hell? That's it. Okay, but look at the impact of this light. I mean, the United States had this trajectory of using nuclear power. After that movie in 3 Mile Island, America was like, we're done with this, right? And use of nuclear energy just cratered and has barely recovered. Imagine if that PORV valve light was fine. You know, it did its job and we didn't have this. And who could say where America would be in use of nuclear energy today? That's a radically different situation from one interface. All right, another one before we go back to the important stuff, which is me and the pickles, right? There's just one more, okay. United States, the year 2000. Okay, I am going to try to explain this. I'm going to try to explain this to people not from the United States in like 30 seconds. This is not going to work, okay. We have a crazy way of electing presidents in the United States, okay? We don't have one big election. We have 50 state elections, all right? In each state, you have to basically win the state and you get all of the electoral votes from that state, basically apportioned sort of kind of by population. So if you win Texas, you get all 32 of the electoral votes. If you win California, you get all 54. At least these were the numbers at the time. Basically, the math has to add up, so you got to get 270. You get 270, congratulations, you're the president of the United States. And usually what happens at the evening of the election is we know who won. We're very used to this in America. 8 p.m. that evening, we got it. We know who it is, right? Whatever. It's really close. Now, the election was super close, as you can see. At the end of the night, Al Gore, the Democratic candidate, has 266 electoral votes. George W. Bush has 246. Neither has 270. I checked that math. That's because Florida is undecided. Whoever wins Florida wins the whole thing. But Florida, man, was this close. And I mean like hundreds of votes in a country of then over 300 million. All right, so people are very interested in those votes. And they start really investigating what's going on with the results. Why is it so close? What can we see? Well, we didn't know who the president was for like 6 weeks because there were all this counting and recounting and lawsuits and fun for a long time until finally it ended up that the Supreme Court enters in, stop counting, the guy who's ahead wins. It was George W. Bush at the time. Okay, this was the ballot in a county or a couple of counties in Florida. And they found some irregularities in this county. Normally, this was a super duper Democratic county, like 80-20. But this super right-wing candidate had way more votes than they would expect. Like, what's going on? It's not even like, you have Al Gore left-wing, George W. Bush right-wing, and then this other guy, Pat Buchanan, like way over here, super right. And he's getting all these votes. Like, what's going on? It's a Democratic place. So they look at the ballot they were using, and this is it. It's paper ballot. It's called the butterfly ballot because the two areas on the left and right are the wings, and that yellow thing in the middle is sort of the spine. And I understand you're looking at this right now going, this is stupid. And you're correct. It's really stupid. It's a piece of paper that's slotted through a machine. You have to take this metal pin and poke a hole through the paper using the central axis there to tell who you want to vote for. Even in the year 2000, we were like, this is crazy. This is the oldest thing we ever heard of back then. All right? But they still used it. Obviously don't use it anymore. Now, lots of candidates, right? In America, there's only like 2 people who have any kind of chance, the Republican and the Democrat. That's it. Everyone else, they might be on the ballot, but it's not happening. They're not even gonna register anything. But there's still a lot of people. So you're probably looking over here on the left, you're gonna vote for Republican or you're gonna vote for the Democrat. That's basically what you're doing in America. And it's kind of easy. If you wanna vote for the Republican, you're like, okay, I'm gonna take my little metal pen and kabam, I'm gonna punch it right there. I did it. I voted for the Republican. Yay. And then maybe if you wanted to vote for that far right reform, sort of proto-MAGA guy, you'd say, yeah, I can vote for Pat Buchanan. I just tick off that one. But what if you wanted to vote for Al Gore? Which one do you pick? Do you pick the first one you see? Or do you pick the one with the arrow? Right? It's not as easy a decision as you might think. All right? Because if you can pick them both and they can both work. Right? If you picked the one up top, congratulations, you just voted for Pat Buchanan. And this is the theory, all right? And it's a good theory. It's almost certainly what happened, right? For those vote totals to be high. But now everyone's thinking, if those vote totals were so high and things got messed up, who actually won? Where did the votes go? Lawsuit, 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 right? 5 weeks. That's basically how it went. Okay. And they had to count and recount. And what happens if you poked a hole in the paper, but the little thing called a chad didn't come off, or was dented, or there was 2? Do you count them? Do you not? What do you do? What a pain. Okay. Can we all agree it's bad design? That's easy, right? Even software engineers can tell that's bad design. Okay? Super awkward. It even requires manual dexterity to do. Of course, they abandoned it after this. It worked just the way it was supposed to work, though. It was exactly as designed. And you basically had to make the ballot fit this pre-existing machine, even to the point of having to go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right to read it. Just terrible. Okay. It was also strategically bad because there was absolutely no way to handle a problem in Florida. Like when this went really bad, no one knew what to do about it. There was no method to solve this problem. Everyone just went, you know, it's like they're ordering pickles, I guess. Right? No plan for failure. And the United States has sort of this shaken system. That was like a big deal for us. We were like, can we do anything right? Can we even elect someone? I mean, what's going on? And so all of these states, they're redoing all their systems after this. Florida went crazy and they like made like the most efficient system ever. And now they're like always the first. We didn't do it this time. You know, we're super fast, we get it done, and it's great. But it was a shake, right? Imagine, I mean, it's possible. It's hard to tell, it's hard to know, but maybe if that ballot weren't used, maybe Al Gore would have been president. When we were talking about changing presidents, that changes the rest of history to today. Just one little interface. Okay, fair enough? Let's come back to me, okay? Because that's what's important here. Because there's more to the story of the pickle. That cathartically, I need you to know this. Chips and pickle button. Do you want to know why there's a chips and pickle button on the cash register at Jason's Deli? Because I asked the question, why did you do that? Why did you put those 2 buttons together? Would you like to know why? Yes. Because there was no room for 2 buttons. And that's why. The screen ran out of real estate, and we got to jam 2 buttons together. How about that one? No one cares about that, and we always give a pickle anyway. Okay. So it remains. Chips and pickle, because there was no room at the end. Okay, but there's more. So what are the UI offenses that I care about, right? Function fit means there's a design, and we're just going to put everything, or there's a functionality, and we're going to force the design to fit it. Instead of having 2 logical buttons, can't do that, we'll force to fit our real estate. Right? Everything worked just right in every story we have today. Everything did exactly what it was supposed to do. It worked just fine, and they didn't test for me. All the interfaces are inconsistent, right? Mobile or in person. I've got more for you on that. Okay, and it's, I'm being a little mean when I say internally focused, but Jason's doesn't care about me. They're just trying to sell sandwiches, right? And they always put pickles and chips with their sandwich, and screw you, Dean. That's basically, I'm not saying they're out to get me, okay? But their process was bad, all right? I'm an edge case, all right? And who cares about Dean, the edge case? But don't you care a little bit, just a little bit, about the PORV valve edge case, right? Or the butterfly ballot edge case, or the really bad drop down for missile fiasco edge case? Those are all pretty serious edge cases. Okay. Now here's why. Here's why I always get a pickle at Jason's Deli. This is the bonus information, okay? If I go up to Jason's Deli and I say, I want a sandwich, right? And no pickle. The cash register attendant has to say, okay, great, no problem. And what button do they press? They press the chips and pickle button. So I am now getting a pickle, right? In order to stop me from getting a pickle, they say, hey, Frank, that sandwich, no pickle on that one. And Frank's like, gotcha. And I don't trust Frank as far as I could throw him, right? Because I always get a pickle. I think Frank forgets. And he does, because, he's got other things to do. He's got other sandwiches to make. He's got muscle memory. He's putting a pickle in. Got it. But the real problem is when you go to lunchtime and you order your sandwich, hey, Frank, this guy doesn't want a pickle. He's, I don't know, don't give him a pickle. And Frank's like, I got it. The chances that Frank is actually making my sandwich is like slim to none, because there's a whole bunch of people back there and they're just pulling tickets, right? Tickets that have punched pickle on them and muscle memory for pickle. So Frank's probably not. I have to rely on Frank now to tell someone else what he's been told from the cash register. Cash register to Frank, to someone else, maybe to someone else. It's this whole system is set up for me to get a pickle no matter what I do, right? It's systemically created to give me a pickle. And that's what I get. Okay. But enough about me. So there is significance to us, I promise. And hopefully at the end of the conference, we can just sort of go away with a little bit of encouragement. This is just a regular old intranet we did for a hospital. Nothing crazy, just nicely organized. We talked to users about every last little thing that they needed. This is something that nurses use on the floor in their roving carts. And they'll go onto the internet and they'll look up procedures and crazy stuff like this. And it had to be good. And so that's how it should work. You ask users to really spend time with you and you can make something that's right for them. Okay, fine. Here's some of the documents area that they needed to look up all the time. It had to be fast. And when we talk to users, we always get these great comments, it makes us feel really good. I can't do my job without this amazing thing you're going to be making for me. And I'm yeah, purpose, it's great. Okay, that's nice. But when we get feedback like this, and we got a lot of this, when nurses would say, I've got to be faster. I've got to find the thing, the search has to work right, because I've got to find some crazy procedure or something to do, or I've got problems. My patient's right behind me having serious issues, and I got to be fast. Now, when we see that, we saw a lot of that, we're now we're right in there. We're we're going to make this right. We're going to do this right, and we're going to test it and make it fast. And that helped us so much. And just the everyday mundane stuff we were doing, because it could probably mean something important. Right? The little things mean something. Right? Every little thing you're working on could be the thing that you didn't think was important, but really, really is. No one cares about the whole pickle thing for me. I'm a crazy edge case. Who cares about me? But someone had to architect that valve light that didn't record what anyone thought it did. It's a very little thing, right? And function in every example. Never enough. It's never enough that it just works, ever, because it could just work and do the entire wrong thing, or it could work and just not address what a user needs, or it could work and lead to disaster. And then process is something we're always encountering. We encounter it all the time in all of our projects. You see it. When you create something for users, it works, but processes that have developed in a company frustrate even great design because of how people act when they use it and what they do versus what they say. So we're always thinking about process. That's why I always consider process when we're thinking of design, because I know they're attached. Okay. Everything we do, you're going to go back to work, you're going to do little things that you think are boring and awful and terrible and who cares, but it could be the thing that's got to be right. So stuff we do matters. Chances are you're working on something that's a big deal. It doesn't have to be a hospital or whatever. So I encourage you to understand that the little things you're doing every day, make them great and challenge them. Otherwise, this is basically all you need to know. You can forget all that and just understand this is true. It's true. And if I've only convinced one person, then I wouldn't have done a good job. Hopefully it's more. That's it. That's the chips and pickle story. And that's it. We just wrapped up NDC. It's crazy. Thanks for staying and enjoying, hopefully. It dances. The dancing pickle. It's so vile and evil. That's me. Thanks again. And I hope you enjoyed NDC. Appreciate it.